Iran is the most notorious Shia country in the world, but how did it come to be? Iran is the world's leading Shia country, and it is estimated 95% of its 87 million inhabitants adhere to the 12th branch of Shia Islam. However, did you know at one point the dominant sect in Persia was actually Sunni Islam? As during early Islamic history, dynasties such as the Tahirids and Samanids broke away from the Abbasid Caliphate, becoming independent, which contributed to the rise of Sunnism within the region. As a result, the bulk of the Muslim population were adherents to Sunni Islam, though there were small pockets of Shia communities, particularly in Nishabur and the highlands of Persia. This caused several episodes of violent opposition by the Shia community towards Sunni rule, such as when the Persian Abu Muslim al-Khurasani played a vital role in overthrowing the Umayyad government in 750. Furthermore, due to the fact he was executed 5 years later in 755, it pushed even more Persians towards the partisanship of the Sons of Ali, leading to the Sons of Ali making their first revolt against the Abbasids in 762 in Medina, under the leadership of Muhammad bin Abdullah al-Nafs al-Zakiyah. These Shia revolts continue to occur, such as in the year 834, in which the region of Khorasan witnessed Muhammad bin al-Qasim as a son of Ali appearing on stage. In response to an invitation by a group of pilgrims from Khorasan, he went to Juzjan to start a revolt, rallying some 40,000 people around himself, proceeding from there to the Persian cities of Merv and then Talaqan. As a result of these revolts, many Shia dynasties emerged across Persia, such as the Boyids, Kokoyids, Ziyarids, and Justanids. The most notable of these dynasties was the Boyid Empire, who converted from Zaydi Shia to the Twelver branch. This occurred after the occultation of Muhammad al-Mahdi after his fourth agent died in 941. Regardless, the Boyids were known for supporting the Sunni Abbasid caliphs and were tolerant of the Sunni population, who formed the majority of their realm. The next Twelver dynasty in Persia came 3 centuries later with the Injuid dynasty around 1335, as it broke away from the Il Khanate, a Mongol Khanate which was one of the 5 states that were established following the disintegration of the Mongol Empire. This also occurred with the Sabadar dynasty in 1337, when they declared independence from the Il Khanate. The 14th century was the height of 12 dynasties within Persia, as the Marsian Empire was founded in 1396, in which Mirzi Burzug, a Sayyid native from Dabu Dashant, established the empire. Despite the fact that these rulers adhered to Shia Islam, the vast majority of Persians were Sunni. However, this all changed with the establishment of the Safavid Empire by Shah Ismail I. Originally, the Safavids were a Sufi order founded by the Kurdish Safi ad-Din Ardabil in 1301, though it was not until Sheikh Junayd that the Safavids became a class of militant warriors. This continued when his son Sheikh Haydar inherited the leadership of the order. This saw the rise of the Kizilbash groups, which were primarily consisted of Turkic Shia militants, though at the time the dominant power in Persia was the Akulu Empire, in which the Safavids would often work with the rulers, such as during the reign of Uzun Hassan. However, this all changed during Yaqub's rule, as under the leadership of Sheikh Haydar, the Safavids effectively tried to break away, creating an independence movement, in which the Kizilbash were organized and they fought in Ghazi warfare, in which they tried to force convert people to Shia Islam, as well as extending their power across Persia. Eventually, a Safavid attack on the Shirvanshah, a vassal state of the Ayyukunlu, forced Yaqub to send an army to crush Haydar's Safavids. However, Haydar was killed and beheaded, and the Safavids were suppressed but not destroyed, though Haydar's 3 sons, Ali, Ibrahim and Ismail, were imprisoned. And after the death of Yaqub Beg in 1490, the Akuyunlu Empire quickly fell into civil war. This resulted in Ali, Ibrahim and Ismail being released by one of the contenders in the civil war to enlist Safavid support in his campaigns against his rivals. Eventually, this particular contender, Rustam, put down the Safavids as a potential threat, killing Ali in battle. Meanwhile, the 2 other brothers were exiled. The fate of Ibrahim is unknown, but it is assumed that he died before 1500. Meanwhile, Ismail became the leader of the Safavids. At just the age of 10 or 11, he assumed complete leadership of the order, being guided by tutors and advisors in Gilan, northwest Iran. In 1499, the young Ismail and his advisors emerged from hiding in Gilan, and after summoning a large force of Ismaili's Kizilbash followers to meet them at Erzincan, they subsequently launched a whirlwind campaign through the divided and weak realms of the Ayukullu Empire. They started by crushing the old enemies of the family, the Shirvan Shah, and 2 years later, in 1501, Ismail entered the city of Tabriz, the Ayukullu capital, which resulted in a triumph for the Safavids. And over the next 7 years, Ismail and his followers consolidated Safavid control over the former Ayukullu lands, repeatedly defeating the forces of the various Ayukullu splinter factions in the process. And between 1508 to 1510, Ismail's Safavids also fought the Uzbeks for control of the former Timurid territories in Iran and emerged victorious. This subsequently extended his rule into Khorasan and brought both Mashhad and Herat under his control. The Safavids proclaimed Twelver Shia Islam as the state religion and gave scholars the free hand to spread the religion across Persia. In return, they requested the scholars to bless their political status, thereby giving them religious legitimacy. This was a vital step for political legitimacy at the time, therefore beginning the Safavid conversion of Iran to Shia Islam. The first thing that Shah Ismail did after conquering Tabriz in 1501 was to proclaim Twelver Shiism as the official religion of his new empire, disavowing Sunnism. He went one step further as he requested all Muslims in his realm to publicly renounce their previous religion by practicing Sab. This was the ritual cursing of the first three caliphs, Abu Bakr, Uthman and Omar, as well as the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha radiallahu anha. He also forced his population to add the Shia elements within Salah. To ensure obedience, his royal decree was, whoever disobeys must be beheaded. This practice was particularly emphasized in regions where the majority of the population was Sunni, and most of the population was forced to engage in it or faced persecution. There are examples of several prominent clerics being executed for their refusal to publicly participate in the practice of Sab. One way in which Shia Islam was propagated was through propaganda in the Friday prayer, such as when khatibs were told to remove an ayah from the sermon that was brought about by Umar ibn al-Khattab. He also ordered the khatibs to add the line Aliyan Wali Allah in the Adhan to further propagate Shia Islam. The Shah further ordered his Kizilbash to cut off the heads of those who did not agree with this new Adhan and the Shiite slogans. He even promised those carrying out the murders that they wouldn't be prosecuted for the suppression. He also rewrote Iranian history to perpetuate an anti-Sunni stance, and Sunnis who had a history of insulting the Shiite minorities were burned, which was the same fate that befell the Jews in Persia. The influx of Shia scholars from Jabal Amir in modern-day southern Lebanon, due to the intolerant policies of the Ottoman Empire, further propagated Shia Islam within Persia. He also offered the chance to scholars from other centers of Shia Islam to migrate to Iran, such as those of Arab origin from Syria, Eastern Arabia, and southern Iraq. Added, these scholars were given important positions in the government and were tasked to establish a distinct Safavid Shia identity. They formed close affinity with the rulers and instituted the Friday prayer in the name of the ruler for much needed political legitimacy. They helped the Safavid rulers in advancing the urban elite's knowledge of Shia doctrines and in disseminating religious beliefs and practices among the masses. Even though the power given by the Safavid rulers to the Shia scholars was necessary for support, it created a hierarchical organization of clerics with enormous influence across Persia. Ismail gave a special recognition to the clerical establishment by instituting the office of Sad, which had full control over religious affairs of the state. Religious scholars received substantial funding from charitable foundations known as the Waqf. Religious dues, qoms, and property donations. Entry into the organization was restricted because of the advanced educational and linguistic requirements regulated by the hierarchy itself. Certain clerical families held positions for generations, often strengthened through marriage ties and claims of being descendants of the Imams. Meanwhile, for the Sunni ulama in Iran, Shah Ismail gave them three choices: death, conversion, or exile. This resulted in a near complete eradication of Sunni scholars within Persia. One of the most notable outcomes of this was the massacre of Sunni scholars in Herat. Furthermore, many Sunni scholars had to conceal their beliefs in fear of persecution by Shah Ismail's oppressive policies. Another factor was that upon Shah Ismail I becoming the Safavid ruler, he invited all Shias outside of Persia to settle within his borders, guaranteeing protection that would not be the case in Sunni majority regions. Furthermore, the Safavids extended their purges to many Sufi sects, forgetting their Sufi origins. Another way in which Shah Ismail oppressed Sunnis was through the destruction of their mosques across Persia, as it is noted by the Portuguese ambassador Thomas Pires, who confirmed this was the case when he visited Iran around 1510 to 1511. This also extended to the desecration of Sunni graveyards. One of the most infamous examples was the exhumation of Abu Hanifa's graveyard, the father of the Hanafi madhab. This also occurred to the graveyard of Fakir al-Din al-Razi, 11th century Persian Sunni theologian. Another graveyard that was desecrated was the Hanbali Sufi scholar Abdul Qadir Jilani. Another particular action that Shah Ismail introduced was the Jashan-e-Hazarat-e-Zahra festival. This was a celebration in Shia Islam that commemorated the assassination of the second caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab by the Persian slave Abu Lula Firuz. Any resistance to these changes resulted in extreme revenge, as thousands of Sunnis were massacred in Tabriz after initial resistance to conversion, and Sunni elites and scholars were executed in Isfahan and Shiraz. In the same vein, an officer of Ismail's army ordered the population of Herat to curse the enemies of Shiism and the Safavids. He executed anyone who refused, including the chief judges and the elites. Sometimes, Shah Ismail would outright enact massacres on the Sunni population to enforce Shiism, such as when 10,000 were executed near Hamadan in 1503. This also extended to the Sufis, as 4,000 members of the Kaziruni Sufi order were murdered in Fars, while also the tomb of rival Sufi orders were desecrated. This caused tens of thousands of refugees and dissenters who took up refuge in Asta and were put to the sword. The entire cities of Yazd, Tabas and Abarkul were slaughtered. Tens of thousands of people were victim in these three cities. Or when the entire population of Karshi, about 15,000 people, were massacred by Shah Ismail's army. His son and successor, Tahmasp I, introduced a new group within the military that was responsible for ensuring the ritual cursing of the first three caliphs, as he continued the persecution of Sunnis, in which many escaped to Mughal India. However, it was not until Shah Abbas I that most of the formerly Sunnis of Iran had accepted Shiism. These policies of conversion was not solely isolated to Iran, but also surrounding areas. As a result of expansion by the Safavids, parts of Iraq and the Caucasus were under their jurisdiction. Firstly, following the Safavid conquest of Azerbaijan, Armenia and Dagestan between 1500 to 1502, Ismail I also implemented Shia Islam as the state religion in these regions, causing many to be pressured into converting. One such example was the historic region of Shirvan, in which their population suffered harsh treatment in order to convert to Twelver Shia. This also extended to Mesopotamia when the Safavids seized Baghdad in 1508. This led to his armies zealously killing Sunnis and actively persecuted them through tribal allies of the Shah. Furthermore, in Baghdad, the Sunni scholars that resisted conversion were killed. Likewise, under Tahmasp, southern and central Iraq had been under the Safavid control, which included Baghdad and Basra, in which he continued the violent methods of propagating Shia Islam in these regions. When the Safavids returned in 1624, under the rule of Abbas I and reconquered Baghdad, they once more massacred the Sunni inhabitants. Initially, upon Shah Ismail establishing the Safavid Empire, Sultan Bayezid II congratulated him on his victories. However, due to the violence towards Sunnis and their institutions, the Sultan requested Shah to stop. However, this fell upon deaf ears. Prompted by the inaction of the Sultan, Ismail I influenced a Qizilbash uprising under the direction of Shah Khulu, slave of Shah, which erupted across western and central Anatolia in 1511, largely as a result of Bayezid's perceived inability to suppress the Qizilbash uprisings. However, upon Selim I acceding to the Ottoman throne in 1512, he proceeded to crush the revolt, massacring nearly 40,000 Shias accused of being a part of the Qizilbash or Safavid agents, and imprisoned or deported thousands of others. The massive repression of the Qizilbash in Anatolia was a major blow to the reputation and prestige of the Safavids. This prompted Shah Ismail to launch an invasion on eastern Anatolia in 1514. This resulted in the Battle of Shaldiran in August 1514, in which the Ottomans emerged victorious, in which they established authority in the east of Anatolia as well as occupying the Safavid capital of Tabriz. Overall, by the end of the Safavid dynasty in 1722, the majority of the Sunni population had become Shia, formally marking the end of Sunni dominance within Persia forever. However, Persian historians support this, as they state that the rise of the Shia Safavid dynasty saved the region from being incorporated by the ever-expanding Ottoman Empire in the 16th century. As a result of these forced conversions by the Safavids, the only Sunni minorities in Azerbaijan are the non-Turkic peoples, and in Iran, the non-Persian peoples. One major consequence of the Safavid conversion to Shia Islam, in conjunction with its brutal suppression of Sunnis, halted Ottoman expansion into Europe. This is due to the fact that Constantinople now had a hostile neighbor. Therefore, the Ottomans had to divide their focus as well as resources to quell the enemy in Persia. Added, Safavid Iran and European powers had forged alliances such as the Habsburg-Persian alliance to combat the Ottomans.